Welcome to another episode of the Generative Edge. My name is Donovan. My co-host Vies cannot be with us today, unfortunately, but we are here in Las Vegas at reInvent 2025, and I'm so excited to be in studio today with Alison Kay, the VP and Managing Director of our UK and I practice for AWS. Alison, thank you so much for making the time to speak to me today.
Oh, it's super to be here, and how great is it to be here at reInvent?
Absolutely.
Amazing.
It is just so lively. It is buzzing. We're out here at the Deloitte Canaletto space. It is incredible. They put together this booth for us.
I know. I feel very, very privileged to be in this booth. It's fantastic. So, great to be here.
Great to be here. 55,000 people, the taxi driver told me, but I imagine probably close to 70,000 people.
No, I think we're edging towards 70,000. So it's going to be absolutely buzzing.
Absolutely.
And, there's going to be so many announcements made over the next few days. So the tech continues to go ahead.
Absolutely. And I've heard some of the announcements coming out, and I'm really excited, especially in the AI space. And we're on this podcast talking about Gen AI, agentic, multi-agent platforms. And I know that AWS has advanced tremendously in this space in the last couple of months even. So really excited.
It's going really quickly. I mean, I think from where we were 12 months ago to where we are now, I mean, it's just completely blown away in the last 12 months. So you say every 2 months is just something else and something else. So the pace of the technology is moving really quickly. And I guess the big question now is, how do businesses really optimize and make the most of the technology that's there?
Sure, absolutely. And Alison, it is just so special to have you here looking after the UK and the Irish markets.
That's right.
From your perspective, it is a massive portfolio. Can you take us through what does your typical day look like? I'm sure you're in conversations most of us desire to be in.
I'm in an incredibly privileged position. Yes, every day I'm talking to our people about what they're doing with their customers and the conversations with their customers. But I've also spent a huge amount of time. I've been at AWS now just on a year. Okay. And in that year, I've had over 220 meetings with customers. Wow. So it's an incredibly privileged position to be in. And customers really do want to speak to AWS and they want to speak to Deloitte, because actually the C-suite in particular are now talking about what, not so much should they be leaning in to the technology, which was probably the question a couple of years ago. Should we? What is this? Is it really this? Even a year ago, maybe. But now it's very much a case of, so what do we do? And importantly, how do we do it? And how do we do that responsibly? So I have, every single day, pretty much, I'm in a conversation, whether it's about a customer or with a customer, about how the technology, not so much the tech for the tech's sake, but how the technology can really enhance business productivity, how it can enhance the customer experience, how it can really facilitate revenue growth. And those are amazing conversations to be in.
I can imagine. I mean, you're in conversations, as I said, that most of us could only imagine to be in, right? You're in boardroom discussions. You said 220 meetings this year alone. That's crazy. And when I started this podcast about a year and a half ago, the conversations I was having then were quite different. People were still wondering, is the tech really there? Is this just another hype cycle? And I would love to hear from you the types of conversations you've had in the last 6 months, 3 months. I mean, what are the types of questions you're being asked at a C-suite level? I mean, is it still like, is this real? Or is it about how do I capitalize on the back of this? Can you frame that?
Yeah, I would say that the conversations are less about, is it real? I think everybody would acknowledge that the technology is there and it's available. The question then becomes, how do I translate the technology into something that is real and meaningful in my business? So it's not whether the technology is real, it's whether I can make it real and I can make it work for me in the organization. There's been a huge number of pilots, AI pilots, over the last 6-12 months. I mean, huge numbers, but many of those are not yet scaling. So the question now on the C-suite is that actually, is this thing actually scalable? Can I really see a tangible difference in my organization? Or are we just going to be in a world of another pilot and another pilot that's not necessarily then driving the benefits that are anticipated or hoped for? So I think the conversation now has moved very dramatically in the last 6 months to, how do I now scale the AI in my organization to, genuinely deliver business outcomes
Yeah.
and business value.
Yeah.
And that's really where I would say the conversations move to.
So would you say that a lot of the enterprises already are seeing business value from the current state of AI?
No, but I think some are, and
Yeah.
there's some sort of leading
Sure.
organizations. So, I've been with, a airline company who really are seeing huge value from the use of not just the cloud infrastructure, because let's be honest, you've got to have the cloud infrastructure if you're
Absolutely.
really going to be able to scale at pace
Yeah.
the AI. So AI built on old infrastructure is really not going to go very far, very fast. But those organizations that have really modernized their infrastructure are able to scale. And the ones who are brave and have a very clear business outcome to what they're trying to achieve. So like say an airline industry that I work with, they're really accelerating their growth, and the number and volume of customers that are coming to them is just insane. Why? Because they really have transformed their customer experience through the use of AI, over the last 12, 18 months. So you can pick organizations that are really leading the way now in terms of scaling.
Yeah.
But I would say the majority of organizations are still in the place which is, okay, so now how do I scale?
Yeah.
And how do I pick that business area where I'm not going to sort of shy away from just saying, oh, it's a small little bit that I might pilot, but actually I've now got to be brave, and I've got to take the courage to take a whole process within my organization and not just make some incremental improvements. 10%, 20% improvements not good enough. You've got to reimagine the entire process. You've got to imagine the entire business organization and operating model around it. That takes courage.
Sure. Absolutely. You actually took the words right out of my mouth, because I'm seeing more and more of this theme talking about it's not so much about using AI for operational efficiency or simple gains, because I think we went through a bit of a cycle where we said, okay, cool, now we're starting to see value with the AI, and a good place to start is the typical operational processes and bring some automation and efficiency there. But what you mentioned now was really reimagining the process as a whole, or maybe part of the business as a whole. Do you want to just what is your thinking around this reimagination?
Well, if I take a holiday industry, so typically, historically, you would go on as a customer, and the first thing you see on the website is what dates do you want to go away? So you're tapping the dates, and then they say, oh, well, is there any availability of flights? And then they say, where do you want to go? And then you kind of tap that. And so that would be the sort of linear process. And it's a fairly uninspiring process as a customer, really. Actually, this particular holiday company has completely reimagined the entire sort of way they're framing it from a customer perspective and a customer experience. So they start now with what do you want to feel?
Wow.
How do you want to feel about your holiday? What type of experience do you want from your holiday? So it's less about how many pools have you got, how many, bars are there, how many restaurants are there, but what's the experience that you're looking for? And then they work backwards from that to, and now here we've created your holiday. But that sounds obvious in some ways. But the reality is that required a whole rethink of the entire process, the entire way in which the organization was configured to allow that curation to take place.
Well, that's huge. I want to play back to you what I'm hearing is we have, let's say, forward-thinking leaders in organizations that understand the tech is real.
Yeah.
And they're now saying, rather than just bringing some efficiency gains, we want to rethink our business in a way and say, well, let's reimagine it from how my customer's going to experience, working backwards and allowing sort of slotting the tech in as it makes sense. But that's wow, firstly. But if I just play that back in my mind, that takes a massive amount of internal change, a mindset refocus, a different perspective. How do you see leaders in business trying to orientate themselves around this cultural change, if I can frame it that way?
Yeah, it starts with the exec. So if your executive are not all focused on, two things. One, what technology is available. You don't have to know the nth degree. You don't have to go down to level 400 to be able to, as an executive, appreciate what the art of the possible might be with the technology, and then have the conversations and the work backwards to say we need to fundamentally reimagine. Amazon has always started. One of the things I found amazing here is that sort of start with the customer and work backwards. And I think we are certainly encouraging, and I'm certainly encouraging many organizations to now say, look, reimagine your business from a customer back perspective. That is a very, very solid place to go.
Absolutely.
And actually, it reframes one's thinking from an internal conversation, which becomes incremental, to one which says, actually, we are fundamentally going to change the way in which we're engaging, talking to, and enacting and supporting our customers. And we'll work backwards from that in terms of how we change the business internally. Now, of course, as you say, there are some organizations that have really got this and are driving it hard already, and other organizations are coming up that change curve. But it does start with the C-suite, and I actually think when it starts with the CEO. I was with a CEO of a gaming company actually last year, and I said, look, it's great to talk to you, but I still see you making this an IT problem, and it's your CTO, CIO that have to sort of convince everybody that they have to do something. I said, this really is an exec leadership, strategic conversation, and it should be in every single one of your exec meetings as a conversation. And it is not the job of the CIO, the CTO. And he did reflect in that conversation. And maybe I was a bit in that I know I've just made a very obvious statement to you, but actually he was like, you know what, I've not really considered that. And actually it really does need to be the entire leadership. And so that journey that he has now taken his leadership team on is actually transforming. And we're now in a very big conversation about actually quite a fundamental transformation of the entire business, which is super exciting to be part of. But it's such a different conversation than where it was 12 months ago, which was it's the IT department.
Sure. Yeah. Actually, you just nailed something on the head that we've seen mentioned only a few times in the life of this podcast, which is this is not a CTO, CIO agenda. This is a strategic agenda, and is a collective effort of the leadership and the management group. Actually, how just reflecting on that conversation you had, how are the C-suites sort of trying to outwork this within the structures of their organization? So the one thing is making this a strategic initiative as a leadership. But how do you see them beginning to think about how to outwork this massive transformation inside their organizations?
I think in a couple of ways. One, it's doing a lot of cross collaboration. And now that is quite different from the industrial revolution pattern of, everybody sits in their silos and they do their thing. This requires, cross collaboration, not only between the IT organization and the business organization, but actually across some of the business functions also. So, spending, but actually picking a really transformational problem to solve for, which requires cross collaboration, is where it seems to come alive the best in an organization. But actually we do an awful lot of work within our customers around hackathons, and so we really get the business working together to start to play with the technology, use the technology, and we encourage the C-suite to be part of those hackathons. I do think people have to get hands on the technology, because you can talk at the theoretical level around this is, an important change in the business.
That's actually pretty profound what you just said. And I want to, if I can share a story as well.
Yeah.
I'm interviewing you, but I'd love to share a story because I couldn't agree with you more. I think there needs to be a practical element of the leadership coming together with management, those outworking and carrying forward a lot of the transformational change in the business. And I recently interviewed a CTO of a digital native company, and he has about 400 engineers, developers underneath him. And he was just speaking to them about this change and how do we embrace AI in our workflow. And they were like, no, the AI is not ready. No one can do it better than we can. We've been developing our product for years, and quite interesting to see that level of resistance from technical
Yeah,
people.
yeah.
And he basically had gone away and sought some mentorship. And essentially, there's AI platforms now that you deploy on top of your source code. And he was actually able to start writing code just by talking about the requirements and features he wants to see in his product. So he actually created, and this is coming to your point, he actually created a hackathon internally
Yeah.
between the leadership and the executives of the firm and the people generally managing and outworking the product. And they actually together were able to develop, using AI, product in their backlog that they hadn't been able to get to in over 2 years. And it was quite a nice way for the people on the ground to see the leadership being intimately involved with the product at that level,
Yep.
but also to be challenged and by the general status quo of how they generally develop product.
And I think once people come over, I mean, it's a fantastic story. And I see that time and time again, that when you bring teams together, when you bring leaders to, and leaders are playing with the technology, and it's in a safe way.
Yeah.
Actually, what tends to happen is some breakthrough moments and aha moments, and that fear starts to dissipate because people become excited about, actually we can solve this problem that's taken us 2 years, or we can accelerate our thinking in this area. And actually it's not that scary.
Sure.
And it's okay. But you do have to have the leaders who are also playing in that. It's no good just saying, oh, well, actually you guys go and do the tech bits.
Yeah.
And I'll just stand back. No, everybody's got to be in.
Yeah.
So I'll sit in hackathons, and we're actually creating in January, and I'm super excited about it. We're having a simultaneously in London, well, the UK and Ireland, actually London, Manchester and Dublin, simultaneous hackathons with our customers, our partners, Deloitte are involved in it, ourselves, and we're just all coming together to solve in 2 days some really incredibly difficult social problems.
Amazing.
And so,
Wow.
but the purpose of it is to try and unlock the fear of the unknown, as well as obviously doing some societal good, which is always really, really great to see. But I think just getting hands-on, working together, creating an environment that's energized, that's fun. So I think leaders can do an awful lot about, yes, you've got to think big, you've got to think bold. You start with a customer, you start about really reimagining your business. But you've also got to create a safe environment for people to play with the technology, and for you as a leader to also have a go.
Wow. So you would say it's important for leaders in today's age to create space, time, to really touch the tech.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the fear of the unknown in the business is the resistance that you'll get, whether that's in the technology organization or in the contact center. You will always find the resistance with the fear of the unknown.
Yeah. Wow. That's profound. And let's talk about trust very quickly.
Yep.
We'll pivot to trust because, we talk about AI, and I saw a post the other day from one of our business leaders at Deloitte, Switzerland, saying that we're trying to build intelligent machines, but we haven't yet cracked the nut on building trustworthy leaders, which I thought quite a bold and profound
it's a good
statement.
Interesting.
Yeah. So when we talk about trust in the organization, this is not trust of the tech so much, but trust in my leaders are taking us in a direction. And much to my story around the CTO and his engineering term, how do you feel executives get people to trust in the AI and embrace this change? And sort of demolish this fear of the unknown. Do you have any thoughts on this?
Look, it's difficult. I think the first thing to say is one of the biggest myths around is that AI is coming to replace jobs. AI will replace tasks, but not necessarily jobs. And other jobs and new jobs will be created that we can't envisage today. Who would have thought, 10 years ago that today a really meaningful role is a content creator?
Yeah.
That was just never a thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe even 5 years ago, but certainly 10 years ago, content creators didn't exist, but now they're everywhere.
Yeah.
So we know that the world will evolve and jobs will evolve and new jobs will be created. But the best way, in my view, to encourage the sort of change that the tech will bring is to democratize it,
Mm.
is to create an environment where, people can create, to your point, they are in a place where they are able to create the AI to support their job, to help them be more productive, to help them think, take the boring elements out of their job and to give them more time and space, or to increase the volume of the things that they're doing to remove the backlog.
Yeah.
So create an environment that feels positive about the AI rather than a fear of the
Absolutely.
AI. And I honestly believe if we democratize it and allow everybody access to it,
Sure.
then that will help a huge amount.
That's brilliant. I've spoken to a number of our leaders. I actually spoke to a lady that's an influencer amongst the big tech players. And generally the theme and the takeaway, or at least the data proves it, that AI is actually accelerating the opportunity for people to get more involved in the organization rather than replacing
people's jobs.
Absolutely.
And actually, if the ownership is spread throughout the entire organization, I think we'll find people will become very excited by it. And, look, I genuinely think that by doing so, we also upskill, we create the skills, we create the environment where people no longer are fearing it, but they're actually saying, actually, this is helping me and I'm finding my job more interesting than I was previously.
Absolutely. Wow, Alison, it's been incredible talking to you, and I know you've got a busy agenda.
Well, it's been a delight to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me on this podcast. I'm super happy to be here, and thank you so much for being at reInvent. It's awesome.
Absolutely. So thank you very much. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Generative Edge, and don't forget to generate responsibly.